Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the SEEAUDIO Yume Ultra. This is a collab between SEEAUDIO and AngelEars audio store on AliExpress. They've started doing some collabs some time ago. They had the collaboration with SEEAUDIO with the Bravery AE. Then they had as well the collab with the Timeless AE, which was the 7 hertz. Afterwards they did a collab as well with Jazeer. They called it the Flame, and now they had more recently the BQEYZ Ultra and the Yume Ultra. And it actually would have been nice if they would have continued with the AE nomenclature, naming. It would have been cool, but anyway, it is what it is. It's just a little small detail. Yume Ultra, this is the box with the usual I don't know, I'm not really a big fan of these waifus and stuff, but anyway, it is what it is. Open it up. Okay, first thing that you're greeted with is a box that has a little plaque of the mentioned waifu, and then inside we have the IMs came over there, obviously. Underneath we have a nice little selection of tips, which I'm actually using. The tips, the yellow ones. The cable is half decent. The cable is also a modular cable, so it brings the different terminations. All right, the cable is not bad. It's a little bit on the thin side, but it's not bad. It's kind of similar to the cable that came on the Yume 2. It's all right. It's fine. I mean, it's fine. And that's it. I mean, in terms of accessories and the quality of the accessories, I guess you can't really complain. The tips are good. The cable is decent. The case is that hard case that SEEAUDIO usually supplies, so that's fine as well. Well, it does have a $200 price tag, which does, in my opinion, place it in a little bit of a complicated situation, because it is priced the same as the Yume 2, and the Yume 2 offers very much the same overall accessories package. A nicer case, in my opinion. Okay, nicer case, and the IM itself is, for me, also a nicer IM. It's a full metal shell with Sonian BAs. It's their decision, I guess. That's what they thought would work, and that's that. Anyway, what do I have in front of you? Well, I have here the SEEAUDIO, the SEEAUDIO Yume family, obviously. The original SEEAUDIO, the Kryn collaboration, the Midnight, the Yume 2, and now the Yume Ultra. And to cut a very long story short, it's very simple. The Yume Ultra, is basically a original Yume that's been polished up. Better quality treble, and perhaps better quality bass. Perhaps. And I say perhaps, why? Well, because my particular original Yume, I haven't heard other Yumes, to be honest. I've heard my one. And my one, from what I see in terms of its graph and what I've seen of other ones, my one graphs quite differently. It sounds quite differently. And my one, compared with the Yume Ultra, they sound identical. And when I show you the graph in a couple of minutes, you'll understand. The only difference I truly see between the two of them is the bass quality here on the Ultra is a little bit more cleaner, and the quality of the upper mids and treble as well is a little bit more cleaner than here. That's it. Okay. I've seen other reviewers where the differences are more noticeable, at least graphically. So my opinion is based on what I have in front of me in terms of the units that I have. Okay, so let's start with the Yume, the original one. The Yume, it was all about being smooth. But that smoothness could make it sometimes a little bit lifeless, in the sense that it wasn't, it wasn't gonna rock your world and be a bass monster or be a treble monster or whatever. It was about being smooth, about listening to music in a proper way. It originally was launched at $130, give or take, and the price has escalated over the years. And at $130 when it was launched, it was a good price. It was a solid 1+2. It went against the norm of the tuning of the time, which was just basically V shapes without any sense of resolution, any sense of good quality mids. And here, all of that was given, so you were given a mature, more upscale tuning at an accessible price. The transition from sub bass to mid bass was flawless, very smooth, very relaxed. It made things a little bit lean, but there was still enough to complement the mids nicely. The mids obviously were the start of the show, and if there was any like real criticism to be placed to the original Yume, was the fact that it was perhaps a little bit technically you were left desiring a little bit more technically. Okay, the treble could as well sometimes be just a tad little bit too much, at least in my one. All right, they subsequently then did a collab with Chronicle. They came out with the Yume Midnight, and the Midnight is what? The Yume Midnight is they've lowered the mids and upper mids and treble of the original. They've lowered it down, brought it down, and raised a good 3 dBs the overall bass curve, and so made now the tuning be a more solid bass capable IEM. Technically, it was basically very much the same thing. It lost a little bit in terms of the overall cleanliness of the mids, but what it gained in the bass converted fun. So this was clean but a little bit boring, let's put it that way. This was clean but now became fun, and what it lost in cleanliness compared to the original was more than made up by the fun factor that was introduced, and the treble also improved. The treble was more perfectly executed. They then came out with the Yume 2, and for me the Yume 2, and not wanting to jump the gun, is still the best out of all of them. The Yume 2, they used Sonian BAs, and maybe that's the reason why, maybe that's not the reason why, but the whole mids and treble, upper mids and treble area were very well executed, very well. The balance that they struck between that, the mid bass punch and the sub bass, was very well done. Excellent. It was engaging. It was as clean, if not even cleaner than the original. Okay, even though it had significantly more punch in the mid bass than the original. The same sub bass punch as either the original or the Midnight. The only reason why the Midnight could come across maybe as having a little bit more sub bass is because the mids were significantly lower than on the Yume 2. And then the extension up top was perfect. The only reason why the Yume 2 was perhaps not as successful was because it took forever to get launched. And when it finally was launched, it was kind of met with the likes of the full Performer 5, which was priced at the same value as the Yume 2. So this was roughly $200. This was, like I said, $130, $140. This was priced at about $170, but they had a price increase of about $25 to $30. This came out at $200. You can now get it at like $160, which it makes perfect sense to get this as opposed to the Ultra, honestly, in my opinion. When it finally came out, it wasn't the sound that was an issue, because honestly, if I have to be completely sincere and completely honest, when you compare the sound of the Yume 2 with the full Performer 5, they very evenly matched. There's no real outright winner or loser there. They very evenly match. And if you consider this is a 1+2 and the other one is a 1+4, obviously the Yume lost for the Performer because it was a 1+2 at the same value. Now at $160, it makes more sense. It makes it a viable option. It definitely is a viable option. And as I was saying, technically it was also very, very, very much improved over the previous two itinerations. Great soundstage, imaging, detail retrieval, and the thing that for me really captured my attention was that in terms of timbre and tonality, it was the best one out of the three, and it was how can I explain this? It wasn't that this didn't have good timbre and tonality, it just sounded a little bit boring. It wasn't that this didn't have good timbre and tonality, it was just that it lacked a certain amount of just that little extra sparkles at times. And this had perfect timbre and tonality, good musicality, good amount of it was just the right blend. It was all the right boxes were ticked in the right amount, okay? So that. And now we have obviously the Yume Ultra. In terms of its shell, it's basically the same shell as on the original Yume and on the Midnight. It's a nice resin shell. It's got a nicely designed faceplate. 1+2 still. I believe the dynamic driver is a different dynamic driver, and that would then explain why the quality of the bass is different. In terms of the BAs, they are still nulls as far as I was able to ascertain. So build quality, there's nothing wrong. It's perfectly built. It's nicely executed, fits beautifully in the ears. I'm using KB 07 tips on all of them, as you can see, because it's the tip that actually works the best with these IEMs and in my ears, obviously. And you know, it's about detail. This has got loads of detail, loads of clean mid-range. Male and female vocals are really good. I didn't find at any point the female vocals to be too forward or too intense, like I heard some reviewers mention. I personally didn't find, obviously maybe down to what I'm listening to as well. But I mean, Jeff Ryan's Up and Up, like I usually use, it sounded perfect. No issues. Yeah, House of Groove, Eugene Groove. The only thing that was missing here was a little bit more of bass impact that I got or that I get in the Yume 2. Analog from Soul Persona and Princess Frasier. It's a nice, engaging pop song. If anything as well, maybe just a little extra mid-bass punch would have been nice. It's got a focus which is more on the sub-bass, but you know, when I sometimes hear certain people say focus on sub-bass and this, you kind of get the perception, oh, these things are going to be sub-bass monsters. No. This has got a focus on the sub-bass over the mid-bass, fair enough, but this is very relaxed. Be it mid-bass or be it sub-bass, very relaxed, much like on the original Yume. Here on the Midnight, no, here you notice there's a lot more energy on the sub-bass and on the mid-bass. Definitely notice compared to these two at least. As compared to the Yume 2, this, in my opinion, has stands no chance. It definitely doesn't have the same kind of slam, definitely. And in terms of sub-bass extension, honestly, I didn't see a difference. If anything, the only maybe feeling that you get on this, that over there is a little bit more subdued, is you get that sense of effortless sub-bass at normal volumes. Okay, and over there it is an IM that it comes alive when you give it some power. The Yume 2, when you give it some power and it plays louder, it comes alive. This at low to medium volumes, it sounds more effortless. It sounds more high end, let's put it that way, than the Yume 2. It's neither here or there. It's like I said, it's just it's nice, but it's very relaxed, very smooth. And this the Midnight also benefits from a little bit more volume to let the mids and the highs, the mids, upper mids and highs, then come alive a little bit more and be able to match up the lower frequency. In terms of technicalities, it's better technically than the original and the Midnight, better, but not as good in my opinion as the Yume 2. It trades blows in terms of imaging, trades blows in terms of detail retrieval, but not in soundstage, not in resolution. It loses to the Yume 2. Timbre and tonality as well. It's decent, but it's thinner sounding. It's a timbre and tonality which is a little bit thinner, much like over there. Over here, it's perhaps lacking. It's overly thick, if that is maybe the correct way of putting it, and over there it's the balance that's been struck, you know. That's it. So that's it, guys. I mean, there's really not much more I can say. Do I wreck it? Well, if you don't have any of the Yumes and you can get this at a good price, yes, then I would say, yeah, maybe perhaps consider listening to it first and then maybe getting it. Which would be the one that I would get if I didn't have any of them? I would get the Yume 2, honestly. That's me being really honest. This only makes sense if you can get it at a price which is comparable or lower than the Yume 2. Honestly, to be totally frank with you, the Yume Ultra for me only makes sense getting or buying if you can get it at a price which is comparable to the Yume 2 or lower. If it isn't, don't worry about it. Honestly, there are other options which are more satisfying. The Yume 2 being the obvious one. Anyway, guys, I'll show you now the graphs so you can have a little bit of an idea of what I've been talking about here, and we'll wrap it up. All right, you take care now. Hi, guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the SEEAUDIO Yume Ultra. Let me start straight away with showing you the Yume Ultra, Yume Ultra, Yume Ultra. There we go. Okay, that's the graph of the Yume Ultra. As you can see, everything very smooth, very relaxed, no peaks, nothing. Sub bass focused, glides beautifully into the mid bass, very smooth, relaxed pinna gain. Everything fits within a band of 64 to 72, so 8 dBs. The lowest of the bass is more or less at the same peak as the mid bass, although usually I would like to see this area more around 60 Hertz being at the same level. This will ultimately mean that this is a slightly leaner sounding. There's not much of mid bass impact. Nice treble extension, very progressive in it's the way that it descends, and decent enough extension past 10K. All right, as compared to the original number 3. There we go. That's my original Ultra. Let me just change the color here to something that is more visibly seen. Okay. In terms of the bass, they're kind of the same bass. The difference that I notice here on the Ultra as compared to the original is a little bit more it's just slightly more quality, and I think it's probably down to the different driver that's been used. And then the extension past 10K is a little bit lacking. Okay, it's this area here that I've seen more differences between mine and others, between 5 and 9, let's say. It would seem that the original is more energetic than the Ultra. And yes, it does sound a little bit more energetic, but it sounds also a little bit more unpolished by comparison. The rest, I mean, from 200 to 2.5K, they are the same, basically. I would even go as far back as 100 Hertz. They are basically the same. It's in the lowest of the lowest that I get the feeling that there's less effort. It's more effortless the way that the Yume Ultra does its thing. Okay. Over here, it's a question of polish. That's all right? As compared to the Midnight. So let's take away now this and put on the Midnight, which is this one here. As compared to the Midnight, as you can see, way more bass, definitely. I mean, even compared to the original. Just to quickly show you the original with the Midnight. As I mentioned in the review, they gave it 2-3 dBs more bass, which is very noticeable, and they've lowered this whole mids and upper mids and treble area. They've lowered it. By lowering it, then obviously you get a skewing of the frequency response, which is more bass prominent than it is mid prominent, so everything sounds obviously thicker. It's got a thicker tonality, a thicker timbre. Okay. But it gains a little bit of that mid-bass impact, which makes things more fun and engaging, and that's what the Midnight basically was. Technically, it was basically the same thing. As comparing the Midnight to the Ultra, yes, it does have more bass, and it's noticeable, but it loses out in the mids and in the highs. The Ultra just sounds much better. Of course, a lot of it is down to the fact that it doesn't have as much bass, but even if it's a song, even if it's something like Cecile Norby, or you know, even if I'm listening to just a female, which doesn't have a lot of information down low, and you hear one or the other, you can feel that the Ultra is it's way better than the Midnight in terms of its mids execution and the technicalities. And then finally, compared to the Yume 2, let me just change the color here of the Yume 2. Let me make it red so it stands out. Okay, and then compared to the Yume 2, you would think by looking at it that just for the sake, I didn't mention, I've normalized everything at 500 Hertz. Okay, by looking at the Yume 2, you would think, okay, but the Yume 2 doesn't seem to have much more bass, or there doesn't seem to be much more of a difference. Now, trust me, there is. First of all, in terms of the way the slam occurs, there is a different dynamic feeling on the Yume 2 as opposed to the Ultra, definitely. Okay, so this doesn't reflect the reality. Mids are basically very much the same, but you do notice as well that there's a little bit more extension in the treble, and then definitely more detail past 10K, and this is noticeable by much better soundstage in my opinion. In terms of the imaging, like I said, they kind of trade blows, detail retrieval as well, they kind of trade blows because the overall balance of one of the others ends up being almost the same. But soundstage, the Yume 2's got a grander soundstage by far. And that's it, guys. I mean, I can just put all of them here quickly so you guys can see how they all stack up. Let me make this green. Okay, and let me make the last one, the midnight, let me make it black so it stands out as well. And that's it. I mean, as you can see, what jumps to your face straight away, the midnight, the one with the most bass, and the least energy in terms of the mids, upper mids and treble. The Yume 2, you can see, is the one that has the most mids overall, the most energetic mid-range, upper mids and treble, and definitely the most extension past 10K, and as well the one that has the nicest mid bass. I mean, when you compare it, for example, just to the midnight, they're very similar here, and the amount of information below is not that significant in the majority of songs for you to see that the midnight has got more sub bass. If you do notice a song that the midnight has got more sub bass, it's more down to the fact that this area here is not as energetic and doesn't let itself be as noticeable as on the Yume 2. And like I said, ultimately for me, the Yume 2 is still the best Yume version that you can get, especially at the price you can get it now. And the Yume Ultra, honestly, the Yume Ultra only makes sense. The Yume Ultra is an IM that only makes sense if you can get it at the same price as the Yume 2 at the very least, or slightly cheaper. If that is the case, then I would say yeah, go for it. Anyway, guys, that's it. Once again, like and subscribe. You know, click that button. Let my channel be more known. That's what I want. I want to bring more content to you guys. That's what I try and do all the time. So like and subscribe. Any questions, anything, please feel free to ask. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.